We've talked a lot this offseason about improving the offense, being more efficient in the red zone, improving the defense as well. They have to be better than they were last year. It was a real disaster in year 2 under Joe Gillespie. But we haven't talked much about special teams, and the Frogs have to be better in all three phases if they're going to have a bounce-back season. I'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform. It's Friday. I hope you're having a good end of the week. I want to talk about the TCU special teams unit today. I feel like it sort of got lost in what was a really rough season for the Frogs last year, coming off that outstanding run that ended in an appearance in the national championship game and a playoff win over Michigan. But TCU's special teams was not great this past season. And it's always funny how much narratives can kind of flip and shift week to week, year to year. In year 1, obviously Sonny Dykes could do no wrong. And we discussed how his hands-off kind of CEO style with the coaching staff was really beneficial. It was beneficial with the players. They kind of policed themselves. They still had a lot of mental toughness and discipline, but they played with great energy, great effort. And one of the many things that improved with that transition from Gary Patterson's staff to Sonny Dykes' staff was Coach Dykes actually had a dedicated special teams coach, and Mark Tramadol, who came over from Texas Tech and has been all over the place through his career. But that was a big improvement on a special teams unit that had some great returners through the years, like great kickoff punt returners. Occasionally would have a great kicker. It just kind of seemed to be a matter of who was on campus at the time and how good they were individually. Jaden Oberchrome was a great kicker for a number of years for the Frogs. Griffin Kell had an outstanding year as a place kicker in 2022. I'll get the numbers here so I can actually get it right, but he made 89% of his field goals. He was 17 of 19. And of course, in a huge pressure situation against Baylor, they pulled off the bazooka play where they didn't call a timeout. They just rushed the field goal unit out there. They kicked it at the buzzer to win it. It was a defining moment of that run. And again, it sort of played into all the positive vibes that we had within that season. And Sonny Dykes said after the game, he was like, we practice that all the time. That's something we practice every week. We were prepared for it. And it was like, man, that's the type of attention to detail that you want from your head coach, from your special teams coach. And those are the types of things that help you steal games. In close games, if you can flip the game on a special teams play, that's a huge deal. They had an All-American type punt returner in Darius Davis. He was electric. He had a punt return for a touchdown in the first half against Colorado. That was their only scoring in that half. So when the offense was trying to find their sea legs and get things figured out, Darius Davis was able to help them have the lead at halftime in that ball game. Had a punt return for a touchdown against Texas Tech that sort of jump-started that game and gave them an early lead. And he was just always a threat to take it to the house. Had a big punt return against Michigan that set them up for a field goal. You get the picture. So, like everything else, coming off a super positive season, I felt like special teams were going to be really good last year. Griffin Kell was returning as your kicker. Jordy Sandy was returning as your punter. You were replacing your ace punt returner, kickoff returner in Darius Davis. But TCU's never had a shortage of really fast wide receivers and great athletes who can make things happen. And JoJo Earl seemed to be a great fit to step in there and be the guy. But special teams all around last year was disappointing. And I actually came on today's show as I was kind of digging into this and researching it. I expected to come on here and say it was a complete disaster because that's how it felt just from my memory, covering the games, watching the games, as I know many of you probably had that same feeling. But it's always intriguing to look at the numbers and see, okay, what was exaggerated, what wasn't. The comparisons from 2023 to 2022, from a numbers perspective, were actually pretty similar. Now, the big drop-off was in the field goal kicking game. Griffin Kell was 17 of 19 in 2022, 89%. 14 of 21, 66% in 2023. Now, I do think it's worth noting. Part of that was the situations the offense was putting him in. In 2022, he was 17 of 19 overall. He was 9 of 10 between 30 and 39 yards, 7 of 7 between 40 and 49 yards, and he only had to kick 2 field goals over 50 yards, and he was 1 of 2. He had a long of 54 last season, or 2 years ago, excuse me. In 2023, 14 of 21, he was 4 of 4 from 30 to 39. So, in that range over a 2-year sample size, Griffin was 13 for 14. That was his sweet spot. You start pushing him further back in the field, and things get dicey. From 40 to 49 last year was 5 of 8. Not great, but still okay. But the big difference was he had to attempt 7 field goals of 50-plus yards as opposed to 2 in 2022, and he was 3 of 7 from 50-plus yards, and that was the big difference maker. When he had to kick, 52, 54-yarder, he couldn't do it. I also think he struggled with confidence at times, which is something that kickers always deal with. I still don't really know exactly what was going on in that West Virginia game, but he had 2 kicks that were blocked, and they didn't even really get off the ground. And that's not a joke. Like the trajectory of them was extremely low. And they just didn't have a chance as soon as they left his foot. So that was a struggle. And I don't know all the reasons, but I can point to one of them being the offense struggling in the red zone and struggling to get to the red zone was a big culprit in that drop-off. Because, Griffin's a guy that was very reliable, within 40 yards. Once you got past that, things got dicier, 50-plus. That wasn't really something that was going to be consistently there for him as a place kicker. You have a true freshman coming in this year from South Lake Carroll, and Kyle Limmerman, who committed as part of the 2023 class, or 2024 class, excuse me. He's ranked the number 1 kicker in the nation by kicking guru Chris Saylor. So rankings for kickers when it comes to recruiting are a little bit different. On 3, 2, 4, 7, they don't get into the weeds as much with that position group. But Chris Saylor, who runs a kicking academy and does a lot of coaching with that position group, said that Kyle Lemon was the best kicker in the country when he committed this past summer. And he had a really good season for South Lake Carroll in 2023. His final stats, he was 92 of 92 on PATs, 8 of 10 on field goals, with a long of 51. He had a miss from 59 yards and a 1 kick blocked. He was also a punter and was second team All-State as a punter. It doesn't appear like he will punt at TCU. He'll mainly be a kicker. But they're getting a guy in here with Kyle Limmerman that's got a strong leg. And, pressure situations, college football, I'm sure will be somewhat of an adjustment. But with kicking the football, the mechanics of it, the nature of it's going to be very, very similar. And so that's not going to be a huge step up. I think he'll do great. And Sonny Dykes said after spring practice, he's like, listen, we're expecting Kyle to come in and be the guy. Like from the jump, he's the dude. It's his job. We think he's going to be really good for us, and he needs to be really good for us if our special teams is going to improve. So I'm optimistic about that side of the special teams game being better because I think Kyle's super talented. He's got a strong leg. And hopefully under year 2 of the Kendall Briles offense, things get better, once the team crosses midfield in opponent's territory in the red zone to where they're not putting him in situations where he's consistently having to kick 45-plus, 50-plus yard field goals. He's got a strong leg and he can do it, and that is a game changer. I think the big difference here from a positive perspective is that wasn't really a club that Griffin had in the bag. Like he could do it, but that wasn't his comfort zone. And you don't want to continually put your kicker in that situation, but if they have that ability to get it done, then it makes a huge difference in kind of how you approach those situations as an offense. And, it'll be also intriguing to see that Sonny Dykes likes to go for it on 4th down. Does he change his philosophy a little bit if he knows, like, all right, once we're past the, 35-yard line, opponent's 35-yard line, we feel pretty good about our chances of at least getting 3 points and kicking the ball off and getting the ball rolling again. So that's going to be a huge change this year. Kyle Limmerman coming over from South Lake Carroll, where he had an outstanding senior season, was perfect on PATs, missed 2 field goals, and was an all-state kicker for the Dragons. I also feel like, well, I'll talk about the return game now. Losing Darius Davis was just a huge drop-off. I mean, they missed his the ability to flip the field, to put the offense in great field position, and that home run threat as well. Now, when I was talking about the numbers and how they break it down, it was interesting to me because they averaged 12 yards per punt return in 2022. In 2023, it was 10 yards. So it was different. I mean, there's a small difference there, but it wasn't a huge, massive drop-off. I think the biggest drop-off with not having Davis back there was the fact that, one, you missed that home run threat. And early in the year, maybe this will change now. I mean, I think JoJo Earl can be a good special teams returner for them, but he was struggling to catch the football. I think he was struggling to read, like, okay, when's the best time to call a fair catch and just reel it in? When's the best time to let it drop and let it bounce? And so that has to get better as well. They've made a shift in the special teams coaching staff. Mark Tramadol he's still on staff, but he's now special assistant to the head coach. I think his main focus will still be special teams, but he's not going to be on the field during the games necessarily. And then they also brought in Casey Petrie, who was a tight ends coach at Cal Poly, and he's a full-time analyst on the special teams side of the ball. So they're making a commitment to, having more resources there. And I'm not sure if that means they're going to be more creative in some of the things they do, but he's there. He's going to be part of this coaching staff now, and his full-time job is dedicated to special teams, trying to find advantages in that third phase of the game. From a kickoff return standpoint, they averaged 20 yards a return last year. They averaged 21 yards per kickoff return in 2022. I mean, honestly, if at this point in time, I think in the NFL, it's completely changed to where kickoff returns are really pretty non-existent for the most part. But unless they're forcing you to bring the ball out, most times I would just take the fair catch and start your drive at the 25-yard line. It's great if you can break through that first wave of defenders and make something happen. But there were a number of times last season, and the one that stands out most in my mind was the Baylor game right before halftime. And I don't know who it was that decided to bring it out, but they returned the ball, and it's like, 2-minute drill type of situation. So they wasted time off the clock. And they also didn't get to the 25-yard line. So they wasted time and gave the offense worse field position in a 2-minute drill type of situation, which is just unexcusable. And really in all three phases, this was from top to bottom last year. I went on a rant after the Tech game and the post-game show this past season because there were just multiple instances in that ball game. They had a fourth down stop that got negated because of an illegal substitution penalty. There were countless false start penalties. The attention to detail across the board was just not good last year. And I think ultimately that falls on Coach Dykes. And it has to be better on offense, defense, special teams. And I'm not breaking news there. But if as a collective group, if that's just improved, I think it'll make the special teams better. But that's a place, within the ball game where you can find advantages and you can steal points and make things happen. And they just didn't make enough of a commitment to it this past season. And so that has to be, one of the priorities this upcoming year, is trying to improve that, make it an advantage again. Because in 2022, the return game was an advantage. They were very consistent kicking field goals. And in 2023, it was just a huge drop-off. They've made some coaching staff changes. They've got an improved kicker, who I think is also going to help. I think Kyle Limmerman will also help, the touchback percentage, and a new punter as well, which I should mention that. Jordy Sandy moving on, and Ethan Craw coming over from Australia. He spent some time in Huntsville, Alabama. and spent one season playing high school football there, but he's from the same kicking academy that Jordy Sandy was from. And so hopefully they'll do a better job of flipping the field there as well. They also punted the ball 25 more times last year. And, that was just one of the many things that was a huge difference last season. The offense wasn't super efficient, and so that affected the defense and the special teams as well. So if that improves, just that on its own, I think will help the other two phases of the team in general. When we come back, big-time cornerback prospect on campus this weekend. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Game time. If you are in need of tickets to a sporting event, a Rangers game, to a local theater production or comedy show in the DFW area or wherever it is that you live, you should download the Gametime app today. The features that I love about the Gametime app, super easy to use. They are very upfront about their fees. There are some fees, processing fees, things of that nature, but they don't surprise you with them. They tell you straight up, hey, this is what you're going to pay. So when you click on it, this is what you're going to pay for 2 tickets. When you go to checkout, they don't add on, $25 extra in fees. You know what the situation is before you check out and make your purchase. And then also they have a picture of what the view is going to be from your seat. And that's a huge deal as well. That transparency is why I love the Gametime app personally. Download the Gametime app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Gametime, terms and conditions do apply. Download the Gametime app today, the easiest way to find tickets on the secondary market. So it's been a big time, couple of months for TCU on the recruiting trail. They've made some huge additions to this class. Chad Woodfork, 4-star edge rusher. He's the highest rated prospect in this class for now. Ty Hawkins, quarterback, has been the centerpiece of this 2025 class for a long time. He's been competing in the Elite 11 finals in Los Angeles, the 20 top quarterbacks in the nation at the high school level. He did not make that group of the final 11, but performed well there, did really well in the 7-on-7 and the pro day drills. And he's still getting pursued by a lot of different schools. Heard Oregon's name come up. SMU's trying to make a push. I think TCU's got a really good relationship with Ty, and hopefully that wins out. And I think they're in a good place with him right now. But he's a big-time QB, and so there's going to be interest there up until signing day when they get him, officially on the roster as a TCU Horned Frog. And they're still trying to add players. Right now, they're first place in the Big 12. Or they're the best class in the Big 12 according to 247 Sports, a top 15 class in the nation. And another big-time 4-star recruit on campus this weekend. This visit's been scheduled for a while, but Jeremy Clark confirmed it on 247 Sports. Micah Strickland from Brownsboro, a cornerback, 6 feet tall, 175 pounds. If Brownsboro sounds familiar to you in relation to TCU, Jakyle Baker, wide receiver, who was the top prospect in the Frogs 2024 class. He also played his high school ball there, so they're former teammates. Micah's got offers from everybody. Biggest name on his offer list is probably Michigan, but Texas Tech, Houston, Baylor, Nebraska, Oregon State, Vanderbilt, and others, all interested in the corner from Brownsboro. Great size at 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, really good speed, great player. If TCU could land him on the defense side of the ball, that would be a huge pickup. They recently got Julius Sims from White House High School in the Tyler area, who's going to play safety for them. They've done a great job adding, edge rushers and some of your prototypical middle linebackers, inside linebackers of this class as well, but haven't been super active in that corner spot yet. And so this is a good idea of, Micah's being courted by everyone across the country. So it's not like they're unique in this regard, but it gives you a good idea of the type of corner that TCU wants. And really, when I've talked with Brian Smith about this, our recruiting expert at the Locked On Network, it's just the way everybody's kind of viewing that position now. You want long, rangy corners who are fast, who can, if they get beat over the top, they can recover with their just length and athleticism, and that have that ability to play on an island, play one-on-one coverage. And in this new defense where TCU is going to be more aggressive and they're going to be changing up coverage looks a lot and trying to disguise things, you have to have athletes that can win one-on-one matchups. And so Micah Strickland, if they could land him, that would go a long way in getting those types of players, those types of athletes on campus at TCU. So Micah, along with others, will be on campus this weekend. And then we enter dead period for a few months where there's still recruiting going on, but schools can't, put on these big events. So everybody's kind of making a big push at the end here to try to land. It's not the end of the recruiting cycle, but the aggressiveness will taper off a little bit as teams transition more into summer workouts mode, getting ready for the upcoming season. But TCU's been super active, in this part of the offseason with this 2025 class, and they've done a great job building momentum, getting big names on campus, getting big-time commits, and Micah Strickland will be a huge addition as well. So he's on campus this weekend, the corner from Brownsboro. Frogs trying to finish the job there and improve that 2025 class, as they've done a great job up to this point under Sonny Dykes' leadership. When we come back, we'll get some audience reaction and wrap things up. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. On yesterday's show, we talked about the Elite 11 finals. We talked about TCU basketball, men and women back in action. I mean, they're not obviously scrimmaging or anything like that, but they're at practice. They're working out together, going through the summer workout program. Really exciting time for Mark Campbell and the women's team. Jacob Langford said, you said it well with Jamie Dixon. I'm a supporter of him being here now. Interested to see how he does with the new look Big 12 in hoops. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think he's done a great job, obviously reviving the program. I understand why people are demanding more from him. And it's a good point. I mean, the league's only getting stronger. We'll see what Utah brings to the table. They're not perennially a really good basketball school, but BYU was kind of in that same boat when they made the move, and they had an outstanding season. Of course, Mark Pope moves on to Kentucky, so they're having a coaching change. But I feel like with all these schools that made the move, UCF and Cincinnati included, and of course Houston, I mean, under Kelvin Sampson, they've just been a dominant force for a number of years now. But they all really did step up their game in basketball. But, of course, the big name that's making the move here is Arizona Hoops, is also part of the league now. And they're one of the blue bloods when it comes to college basketball. So the league only continues to get tougher. They're talking about expanding the Big 12 tournament, which means, I mean, I guess in some ways it'll make it easier to get in, but also you got to find a way to win games against the toughest competition in the country. Matt Clark says he personally loves going to 96 in the NCAA tournament. The bottom 64 playing the first round, top 32 get a bye. Winners go to the big dance to face the top 32, and losers go to the NIT. It's just one more game and becomes double elimination for those in the first round. Yeah, I mean, I guess I get that. I feel like as is, the tournament's really great. And I understand, like, we're always kind of wanting more. And from the NCAA perspective, it's just another revenue generating opportunity. But it's like, it's a really good tournament. I just don't see a need to tinker with it or mess with it. But, if they played the games, I would watch them. So you're right about that. Justin McGuffey says Sonny's cooking in the quarterback room. He's done a really good job over the past few seasons. I mean, I think Haas Haney's going to be a great player. I think Ty Hawkins has a chance to be a really good player. Now, you're probably going to lose one of those guys just based on who wins the competition over the next few years, but you have to continually stack talent at that spot, and they've done a great job of identifying talent since Sonny took over. And then Big Easy said the North Crowley recruit Chris Jimerson made a smart decision. Quarterback room's going to be crowded in the future with Hoover, Haney, and Hawkins. Probably going to lose a couple of them, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So if you missed it yesterday, Chris Jimerson, who's playing quarterback at North Crowley right now and is having a really good career there, he committed to TCU as an athlete, most likely was going to play like slot wide receiver, and he decommitted yesterday or a couple days ago and decided he wanted to pursue opportunities to play quarterback at the next level. So, we wish him the best. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like TCU never really gave him the chance to play QB. They didn't see him in that spot. And so we'll kind of see where he goes from here and what happens moving forward. But, yeah, best of luck to him. I totally understand why I made that choice. We'll be back on Monday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day.